The stars looked different through alien eyes, Jake Martinez thought as he watched the bridge crew work. 6 months ago, he never imagined he would be floating through deep space on a ship built by beings from another world. The meridian was beautiful in ways Earth ships could never be. Its walls curved like flowing water, and soft blue light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Jake sat at his communication station, monitoring radio signals from distant planets. His job was simple but important. He made sure messages got through clearly between the ship and other vessels in space. The work came easily to him, even though all the equipment was designed for hands very different from his own. Commander Vextar stood near the center of the bridge, his tall frame moving with the grace all Zephyrians seemed to have. His skin was pale blue and almost see-through, like colored glass. When light hit him right, Jake could see the slow pulse of blood through his veins. All the Zephyrians looked similar, but Jake had learned to tell them apart by their voices and the way they moved. Dr. Kielnon was checking medical readings at his station. He was the ship's doctor and had spent many hours making sure Jake could live safely on the ship. The air, the food, even the water had to be tested and changed to keep a human healthy. Jake felt grateful for all the work the doctor had done. Engineer Zareth worked at the power controls, her long fingers dancing over controls that lit up at her touch. She rarely spoke to Jake, but she never seemed unfriendly. She just focused on her work with an intensity that impressed him. Navigator Celia was the youngest of the crew and the most curious about Jake. She often asked him questions about Earth and human culture. Her questions were always polite but showed how different their worlds really were. She could not understand why humans needed to sleep every day or why they ate so many different types of food. The rest of the crew treated Jake with respect, but he could tell they still thought of him as strange. Humans were new to this part of space. The Zephyrian Alliance had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before Earth even learned how to send radio signals. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Jake did not mind this treatment. He knew he had to prove himself through his actions, not his words. Every day he showed up early, stayed late, and did his job better than expected. Slowly, he was earning their trust. The communication board beeped, and Jake's attention returned to his work. A message was coming in from the Zephyrian homeworld. He made sure the signal was clear and sent it to Commander Vextar's station. Message received and decoded, Commander, Jake reported in the formal way the Zephyrians preferred. Thank you, Jake Martinez, Vextar replied. The commander always used Jake's full name, as was their custom. Your work continues to meet our standards. This was high praise from a Zephyrian. They did not give compliments easily. Jake felt a warm feeling of pride in his chest. The message was about new safety rules from Zephyrian High Command. Jake could see parts of it on his screen. Something about training exercises and emergency procedures. He did not read the full message since it was not his job to do so, but he noticed it seemed important. Dr. Kielnon looked up from his medical station. Commander, I am seeing some interesting data about our human crew member. His body continues to adapt well to our ship environment. His blood chemistry remains stable, and his neural activity shows no signs of stress. Jake had gotten used to being discussed like he was not in the room. It was not meant to be rude. The Zephyrians were simply very direct in how they talked about everything. This is good news, Commander Vextar said. The success of our mission depends on all crew members working at full capacity. The mission was a survey of empty space between two star systems. They were looking for planets that might support life and checking for signs of hostile alien activity. It was routine work, but important for keeping the shipping lanes safe. Jake had learned that space was not as empty as people on Earth believed. There were dangers out there. The Kresh Empire was always a threat, though they rarely came this far into Zephyrian territory. There were also space pirates, dangerous storms of energy, and planets with poisonous atmospheres that could kill entire crews. Engineer Zareth called out from her station. All systems running smoothly, Commander. Engine efficiency at 97%. Life support systems normal. No problems to report. Jake smiled to himself. Zareth always gave the most detailed reports, even when everything was working perfectly. He had noticed that all Zephyrians seemed to love precision and accuracy in everything they did. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of various instruments. Jake found the sounds comforting. They meant everything was working as it should. Navigator Celia turned to look at Jake. "Jake Martinez, I have been wondering about something. On your home world, do all humans work together as well as you work with us?" Jake thought about the question carefully. Humans can work together very well when they need to. But we also argue and fight sometimes. We are not as united as Zephyrians. "This is fascinating," Celia said. "How do you accomplish anything with so much disagreement?" "We find ways to compromise. And sometimes the disagreements help us think of better solutions," Jake explained. Commander Vextar listened to this conversation with interest. "Your species has many unusual traits, Jake Martinez. We are still learning about human behavior." Dr. Kielnon added, "From a medical perspective, humans show remarkable adaptability. Your bodies handle stress and change better than most species we have studied." Jake felt proud of his species, but also aware of how much he still had to learn about the galaxy. Every day brought new discoveries about the Zephyrians and their technology. He was grateful for the chance to be here, representing humanity among the stars. The day shift continued with routine tasks and regular status reports. Jake handled communication traffic from nearby ships and space stations. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. As he worked, Jake could not know that tomorrow would bring changes that would test everything he thought he knew about himself and his place on this alien ship. For now, he was simply a human doing his job among friends from another world, learning to be part of something bigger than himself. The next morning brought news that would change everything, though Jake did not know it yet. He arrived at his station early, as was his habit, and found Commander Vextar already studying the message that had arrived the day before. "Jake Martinez, please report to the medical bay after your shift begins," the commander said. "Dr. Kielnon needs to perform additional health checks on all crew members." Jake nodded and took his place at the communication station. The ship was moving through a quiet section of space, with only routine traffic from distant vessels. He handled the morning reports and status updates while wondering why extra medical checks were needed. After an hour of normal work, Jake made his way to the medical bay. The room was larger than Earth medical facilities, with strange instruments that glowed and hummed softly. Dr. Kielnon was preparing several devices Jake had never seen before. "Good morning, Jake Martinez," the doctor said in his careful way of speaking. "I need to run some new tests on your nervous system and blood chemistry. This is related to new safety protocols we must follow." "Is there a problem with my health?" Jake asked, feeling worried. "No, your health remains excellent. These tests are for a different purpose. Please sit on the examination table." Jake sat down and let the doctor attach small devices to his head and arms. The machines beeped and showed patterns of light that meant nothing to Jake but seemed to please Dr. Kielnon. "Your neural pathways are very different from ours," the doctor explained as he worked. "This is expected, of course, but we need precise measurements for the new safety procedures." "What kind of safety procedures?" Jake asked. Dr. Kielnon paused in his work. "We have received orders to begin monthly nerve gas exposure drills. All ships in the fleet must practice these exercises to prepare for possible attacks from the Kresh Empire." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Nerve gas. That sounds dangerous. "It should not be dangerous if we follow proper procedures," the doctor assured him. "The gas we will use in training is very mild. It causes temporary effects on thinking and movement, but no permanent damage. We have used similar drills for many years without problems." The doctor continued his tests, checking Jake's reflexes and brain activity. "Your species has unusual neural chemistry, but our protective equipment should work for humans as well as Zephyrians. The breathing masks and antidote injections are designed to protect any carbon-based life form." Jake tried to feel reassured, but something about nerve gas drills made him uncomfortable. On Earth, such weapons were banned by international treaties. The idea of practicing with them, even in small amounts, seemed wrong. "How often will we do these drills?" he asked. "Once per month, as ordered by High Command. The first drill will happen tomorrow during the day shift." When Jake returned to the bridge, he found the other crew members discussing the new protocols. Engineer Zareth was checking the ship's atmospheric systems to make sure they could handle the gas properly. Navigator Celia looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "Have you done these drills before?" Jake asked her quietly. "Yes, but not for several years," she replied. "I did not enjoy the experience. The gas makes thinking very difficult, even with protective equipment. Everything becomes slow and confusing." Commander Vexstar called for attention. "All crew members will report to their stations at the normal time tomorrow. The drill will begin exactly at midday ship time. Make sure you know where your breathing equipment is located." Jake spent the rest of his shift thinking about the drill. He had faced dangerous situations before, but this felt different. The idea of deliberately breathing poison, even with protection, went against every survival instinct he had. That evening, Jake called Earth using the ship's long-range communication system. Captain Lisa Parker answered from the Science Division headquarters. She was his main contact with Earth and had helped arrange his position on the meridian. "Jake, good to hear from you," Lisa said, though the signal delay made conversation slow. "How are things going with the Zephyrian crew?" "Very well, Captain. But I wanted to ask about something. We're going to start doing nerve gas drills. Is this something Earth Command knows about?" There was a long pause, partly from the signal delay and partly from Lisa thinking. "We've heard rumors about new crush weapons, but we haven't been told about any drills. Are you concerned about safety?" "The Zephyrians seem confident their equipment will protect everyone, including me. But they've never tested it on a human during an actual gas exposure." "I'll contact the Zephyrian Alliance and get more information," Lisa promised. "In the meantime, follow their safety procedures exactly. If you feel any symptoms at all during the drill, report them immediately." After ending the call, Jake went to his quarters and tried to sleep. But his mind kept racing with questions and worries. What if the protective equipment did not work on humans? What if his body reacted differently to the gas than Zephyrian bodies did? He thought about the medical tests Dr. Keelnon had performed. The doctor had seemed surprised by some of the readings from Jake's brain activity. Maybe human neural chemistry was more different than anyone realized. Jake finally fell asleep, but his dreams were filled with images of poisonous clouds and breathing masks that did not work. He woke up several times during the night, each time feeling more anxious about the coming drill. The next morning arrived too quickly. Jake went to the bridge and took his position at the communication station. Everyone seemed tense, even Commander Vexstar, who was usually calm about everything. Dr. Keelnon distributed breathing masks and small injection devices to each crew member. "Remember, put on your mask as soon as the warning signal sounds," he instructed. "If you feel dizzy or confused even with the mask on, use the injection device immediately." Jake examined his equipment carefully. The breathing mask was designed to fit over a Zephyrian face, but Dr. Keelnon had modified it to work with human features. The injection device contained what the doctor called a neural stabilizer that would counteract the gas effects. "Are there any questions?" Commander Vexstar asked. No one spoke up, though Jake could see worry in the faces around him. This was routine for the Zephyrians, but clearly not something they enjoyed. Jake checked his communication equipment one more time. If something went wrong during the drill, he wanted to be able to call for help quickly. He also made sure Captain Lisa's emergency contact information was ready on his personal communicator. The ship's chronometer showed it was almost time. In a few minutes, the drill would begin, and Jake would find out if human bodies could handle Zephyrian safety procedures. He took a deep breath of clean air and tried to stay calm. Whatever happened next would change everything he thought he knew about being human among aliens. The warning klaxon cut through the bridge like a knife. Jake's heart jumped as the loud, piercing sound echoed through the ship. Red lights began flashing on every wall, and automated voice announcements started speaking in the Zephyrian language. Emergency drill commencing, Commander Vextar announced in English for Jake's benefit. All crew members don protective breathing equipment immediately. Jake grabbed his modified breathing mask and pulled it over his face. The seal felt tight around his nose and mouth, and he could hear the soft hiss of filtered air flowing through the device. Around him, the Zephyrian crew members were doing the same thing, their movements quick and practiced. Dr. Keelnon was at his medical station, monitoring readings from sensors throughout the ship. Gas release beginning now, he reported. Concentration will reach training levels in approximately 3 minutes. Jake could not see or smell anything different in the air, but he knew that deadly invisible poison was starting to fill every room of the ship. His breathing mask felt strange and uncomfortable, making each breath require extra effort. He tried to stay calm and focus on his job. Communication status report, Commander Vextar ordered. All systems normal, Commander, Jake replied, though his voice sounded muffled through the mask. No incoming messages during drill period. The first few minutes passed without any obvious changes. Jake continued monitoring his equipment and tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling of breathing through the mask. The Zephyrian crew members seemed tense but confident in their protective gear. Then Jake noticed Navigator Celia moving more slowly than usual. Her hands seemed less steady as she worked at her station, and when she spoke, her words came out slightly slurred. Navigation systems, functioning normally, she reported, but it took her longer than usual to say it. Dr. Keelnon nodded approvingly. Expected mild cognitive effects beginning to manifest. All readings within normal parameters for training exercise. Jake watched Engineer Zareth at the power controls. Her usually precise movements were becoming clumsy and uncertain. She had to try twice to hit the right buttons, and her efficiency reports were taking much longer to complete. This is normal, Dr. Keelnon explained when he noticed Jake watching. The training gas causes temporary reduction in coordination and thinking speed. It simulates the effects of real nerve agents without permanent damage. But as more time passed, Jake began to worry that something was wrong. Commander Vextar was having trouble reading his display screens, squinting at them as if the letters were blurry. When he tried to give orders, he had to pause and think carefully before speaking. Engineering, status, the commander said slowly. Zareth struggled to respond. Power systems, running, normal levels. No problems detected. Jake realized he was not feeling any effects at all. His thinking was completely clear, his hands were steady, and he had no trouble reading his instruments or speaking normally. According to Dr. Keelnon, the gas should have been affecting him just like the others. He looked down at his breathing mask to make sure it was working properly. The indicator lights showed it was functioning normally, filtering the air and providing him with clean oxygen. But maybe human bodies were different enough that the gas took longer to work. Dr. Keelnon was moving more slowly now, his graceful Zephyrian movements becoming clumsy and uncertain. Neural inhibitor, concentration at proper levels, he reported with obvious difficulty. All crew members, showing expected responses. Jake wanted to tell the doctor that he was not showing any responses, but he hesitated. Maybe the effects would start soon, and he did not want to cause worry over nothing. He decided to wait a few more minutes. The communication board chimed with an incoming message. Jake handled it easily, his movements quick and precise. He noticed that his response time was actually better than usual because he was concentrating so hard on doing everything correctly. Message from Earth Science Division, he reported clearly. Captain Lisa Parker requesting routine status update. Commander Vextar tried to respond but had trouble forming the words. Tell her, drill in progress, normal operations will resume shortly. Jake relayed the message, speaking normally while the rest of the crew struggled with basic communication. Captain Lisa's voice came through clearly, and Jake could hear her concern when she noticed how slowly the commander was speaking in the background. Jake, is everything all right there? Lisa asked. You sound fine, but I can barely understand your commander. We're conducting a nerve gas drill, Captain, Jake explained quietly. Everyone is wearing protective equipment, but the gas is supposed to cause mild confusion even with the masks. Are you feeling any effects? Jake looked around at his crewmates, who were all moving like they were underwater. Celia was staring at her navigation controls as if she had forgotten how to use them. Zareth was holding her head in her hands, clearly struggling to think. "No, Captain," Jake admitted. "I feel completely normal." There was a pause on the other end. "That's interesting. Keep monitoring the situation and report if anything changes." As the drill continued, the effects on the Zephyrian crew became more pronounced. Dr. Keelnon was having trouble reading his medical instruments, squinting at displays that should have been perfectly clear to him. Commander Vextar had to grip his chair to stay steady on his feet. Jake began to suspect that something was seriously wrong. This was supposed to be a mild training exercise, but his crewmates looked like they were barely functional. And he felt absolutely nothing. He carefully removed one hand from his controls and touched his breathing mask. According to everything Dr. Keelnon had told him, the mask should be protecting him from the nerve gas while allowing just enough exposure to cause the training effects. But what if the mask was not working properly? What if he was breathing the full concentration of nerve gas and somehow not being affected by it? The idea seemed impossible. Dr. Keelnon had assured him that the protective equipment was designed to work on any carbon-based life form. Humans and Zephyrians were different, but not that different. Or were they? Jake thought about all the medical tests he had undergone since joining the crew. Dr. Keelnon had often seemed surprised by the results, commenting on how unusual human biology was compared to other known species. Navigator Celia suddenly slumped forward in her chair, barely conscious. Dr. Keelnon tried to get up to help her but stumbled and had to catch himself on his medical console. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He reached up and carefully loosened the seal on his breathing mask, allowing a small amount of unfiltered air to enter. He took a shallow breath and waited. Nothing happened. No dizziness, no confusion, no loss of coordination. His heart racing, Jake loosened the mask further and took a deeper breath of the contaminated air. Still nothing. Either his protective equipment was working perfectly and he was somehow immune to the training effects, or the equipment had failed completely and he was breathing pure nerve gas without any protection at all. Given how he felt compared to his struggling crewmates, Jake was beginning to suspect it was the latter. And if that was true, it meant something remarkable and terrifying about human biology that no one had ever discovered before. Jake stared at his breathing mask in disbelief. He had been breathing unfiltered air for several minutes now, and he felt absolutely fine. Around him, the Zephyrian crew was getting worse by the minute. Commander Vextar was gripping his command chair with both hands, swaying slightly as if he might fall over. His pale blue skin had taken on a grayish color, and his breathing was shallow and labored. "Commander," Jake said carefully, "how long is this drill supposed to last?" Vextar struggled to focus on Jake's question. 20 minutes total. We are halfway through. 20 minutes. Jake looked at the chronometer and realized they had been breathing the gas for only 10 minutes. If this was how bad the crew looked after 10 minutes of what was supposed to be a mild training exercise, what would they look like after 20? Dr. Keelnon was hunched over his medical console, trying to read instruments that should have been easy for him to understand. His hands were shaking as he attempted to input commands, missing buttons and having to try multiple times for simple tasks. "Doctor," Jake called out, "are these effects normal for the training gas?" Keelnon looked up slowly, his usually sharp eyes unfocused and confused. "Effects, within expected, no, wait." He shook his head as if trying to clear it. "Something seems stronger than usual." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the doctor thought the effects were stronger than usual, and Jake was not feeling anything at all, then something was definitely wrong. Engineer Zareth had stopped working entirely. She was sitting at her station with her head in her hands, making soft moaning sounds. The engineering displays were flashing warning lights, but she seemed unable to process what they meant. Navigator Celia was barely conscious, slumped forward with her eyes closed. Jake could see she was still breathing, but she did not respond when he called her name. The ship's automated systems were starting to complain. Warning beeps and alarms were sounding from various stations as the crew became unable to respond to routine problems. Jake realized that if this continued, the ship itself might be in danger. He made a decision that terrified him. Reaching up, he completely removed his breathing mask. The air tasted normal. No strange smells, no burning sensation in his throat or lungs. He took several deep breaths of the supposedly poisonous atmosphere and waited for the effects to hit him. Nothing happened. Jake was breathing pure nerve gas, the same gas that was making his highly trained alien crewmates barely functional, and he felt completely fine. Better than fine, actually. His mind was clear, his reflexes were sharp, and he felt more alert than he had all day. This is impossible, he whispered to himself. But the evidence was right in front of him. Either he was immune to the nerve gas, or his breathing mask had been protecting him while everyone else's equipment had failed. Given that all the masks were identical and maintained by the same systems, the first option seemed more likely. Jake looked at his communication station and made another decision. He opened a channel to Earth, not caring about proper protocol or chain of command. Earth Science Division, this is Jake Martinez aboard the Meridian, he said urgently. I need to speak with Captain Lisa Parker immediately. This is an emergency. The response came back quickly. Jake, this is Lisa. What's your situation? Captain, we're in the middle of a nerve gas drill, and something is very wrong. The entire Zephyrian crew is incapacitated, but I'm completely unaffected. There was a pause. Repeat that, Jake. Did you say you're unaffected? Yes, Captain. I removed my breathing mask entirely, and I'm breathing pure nerve gas with no symptoms at all. But my crewmates can barely function. Jake could hear urgent voices in the background on Earth. Jake, stay on the line. I'm patching in Dr. Nancy Bell from our Xenobiology department. A new voice came on the channel. Mr. Martinez, this is Dr. Bell. Can you describe exactly what you're observing? Jake looked around the bridge. The commander can barely stand up. The doctor is having trouble reading his instruments. The engineer has stopped working completely, and the navigator is unconscious. They all look like they're severely poisoned. And you feel nothing at all? Nothing. I'm thinking clearly, my coordination is fine, and I have no physical symptoms. If anything, I feel more alert than usual. Dr. Bell was quiet for a moment. Mr. Martinez, this is very important. Have you ever been exposed to nerve agents before? No, never. Earth banned those weapons decades ago. What about other toxins? Industrial chemicals, pesticides, anything that might affect the nervous system? Jake thought quickly. Nothing unusual. I grew up in a normal Earth environment, went through standard military training, normal medical history. This is fascinating, Dr. Bell said. Mr. Martinez, I need you to run some tests. Can you access the medical station? Jake looked over at Dr. Kielnon, who was still struggling with his instruments. I can try, but I'm not trained in Zephyrian medical equipment. That's okay. Just describe what you see. Jake made his way to the medical station, stepping carefully around his impaired crewmates. The displays were showing readouts he did not understand, but he could describe them to Dr. Bell. The screens are showing what look like brainwave patterns, he reported. There are 12 sets of readings, one for each crew member. Can you see which one is yours? Jake found his name on one of the displays. Yes, I found mine. How does it compare to the others? Jake studied the patterns. 11 of the displays showed erratic, disrupted waveforms with lots of interference and irregular spikes. His own display showed steady, regular patterns with strong, clear signals. Mine looks completely different, he said. Everyone else's readings look chaotic and broken. Mine looks normal, maybe even better than normal. Dr. Bell's excitement was clear in her voice. Mr. Martinez, I think we're looking at something extraordinary. Human neural chemistry may be fundamentally different from other known species in ways we never realized. Commander Vextar tried to speak, his words slurred and barely understandable. Jake, something wrong, drill should not, this severe. Jake knelt beside the commander. Sir, I think there might be a malfunction in the gas concentration. This seems much stronger than a training exercise should be. Vextar nodded weakly. Check atmospheric controls. Stop, if necessary. Jake looked at the atmospheric control panel. The readings showed that gas concentration was actually increasing instead of staying at the training level. A malfunction in the system was pumping more and more nerve agent into the ship's air supply. His crewmates were being slowly poisoned, and Jake was the only one functional enough to do anything about it. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders. He was no longer just a communications officer following orders. He was the only person on the ship capable of saving his friends' lives. Jake stood alone on a bridge full of dying aliens, the weight of command falling on shoulders that had never carried it before. The atmospheric control panel blinked with warning lights, showing gas levels that were climbing far beyond safe training parameters. Earth Control, this is Jake Martinez, he said into his communicator, his voice steadier than he felt. I need immediate technical assistance. Our atmospheric system is malfunctioning during a nerve gas drill, and I'm the only crew member still functional. Captain Lisa Parker's voice came back immediately. Jake, are you saying you need to take command of the ship? Jake looked at Commander Vextar, who was barely conscious in his command chair. The blue skin of his face had turned an alarming gray color, and his breathing was becoming more labored by the minute. Yes, Captain. I think I have to. Stand by. I'm connecting you to Admiral Frank Morrison. A new voice, strong and authoritative, came through the communication system. Mr. Martinez, this is Admiral Morrison. I'm also bringing Dr. Nancy Bell back into this conversation. What's your current situation? Jake quickly explained what he was seeing on the atmospheric controls. The gas concentration was now 3 times higher than the training protocol called for, and it was still increasing. Admiral, my crewmates are in serious trouble. If I can't figure out how to stop this, they might die. Dr. Bell's voice joined the conversation. Jake, before we go any further, I need to understand what's happening to you. You've been breathing concentrated nerve agent for how long now? About 15 minutes without any protection. And you still feel completely normal? Jake did a quick mental check. His thinking was clear, his vision was sharp, and his hands were steady. Better than normal, actually. It's like the gas has no effect on me at all. This is remarkable, Dr. Bell said. Admiral, I think we're seeing something that could change our understanding of human biology. We'll worry about the science later, Admiral Morrison said firmly. Right now we need to save those crew members. Jake, can you access the ship's technical manuals? Jake looked around the bridge. I think so. Commander Vextar, can you tell me how to access the technical systems? Vextar raised his head with obvious effort. Emergency protocols in your station. Computer, recognize your voice. Jake returned to his communication station and found the emergency access panel. Computer, this is Jake Martinez. I need emergency technical assistance for atmospheric system malfunction. The ship's computer responded in the Zephyrian language, then switched to English. Emergency protocols activated. Human crew member recognized. What assistance do you require? How do I stop the nerve gas release and clear the atmosphere? A schematic appeared on Jake's screen showing the ship's atmospheric controls. The computer began explaining the procedure, but it was complex and designed for trained engineers, not communication officers. Dr. Bell had been listening. Jake, that's going to be too complicated to do quickly. Is there an emergency vent system? Jake studied the schematic. Yes, I think so. It looks like I can blow all the air out of the ship and replace it with emergency reserves. That will work, but you need to make sure your crewmates have emergency oxygen supplies first, Admiral Morrison warned. Jake looked around the bridge. Each station had emergency oxygen tanks, but several of his crewmates had fallen unconscious and would not be able to activate them. I'll have to do it manually for each person, he decided. Working quickly, Jake moved from station to station, activating emergency oxygen supplies for each crew member. Navigator Celia was completely unconscious, so he had to place the breathing mask over her face and secure it properly. Engineer Zareth was awake but confused, unable to understand what Jake was trying to do for her. Dr. Keelnon managed to help, though his movements were slow and clumsy. Jake, you must activate medical emergency protocols. Ship will record everything for later analysis. Jake activated the medical emergency system as the doctor instructed, then returned to the atmospheric controls. Following the computer's guidance, he initiated the emergency air replacement sequence. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as the ventilation system engaged at maximum power. Jake could feel the air pressure changing as contaminated atmosphere was sucked out and replaced with clean air from the emergency reserves. Atmospheric purge in progress, he reported to Earth. How long before the gas is completely cleared? Dr. Bell answered, at that rate, probably 10 to 15 minutes. How are your crewmates doing? Jake checked each person. Commander Vexstar was breathing more easily with the emergency oxygen, though he was still very weak. Navigator Scylla remained unconscious but her color was improving. Engineer Zareth was sitting up and seemed to be regaining some awareness. Dr. Keelnon was the most alert of the Zephyrians. Jake, you saved our lives. The gas concentration should never have reached those levels. What went wrong with the system? Jake asked. The doctor struggled to focus on his medical displays. Malfunction in release mechanism. Instead of controlled amount, it kept pumping more gas into the air supply. Jake felt sick thinking about what would have happened if he had not been immune to the nerve agent. The entire crew would have been incapacitated, unable to stop the malfunction. They would have been slowly poisoned to death while drifting helplessly through space. Admiral Morrison's voice brought him back to the immediate situation. Jake, you've done excellent work. But now we need to figure out what happens next. Can your commander resume command? Jake looked at Vexstar, who was struggling to stay upright even with oxygen assistance. I don't think so, Admiral. Not for a while. Then you're going to have to stay in command until they recover. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Jake thought about everything that had just happened. An hour ago, he had been a junior officer following orders and trying to fit in. Now he was the only person on the ship capable of making decisions that could save or doom everyone aboard. Yes, Admiral. I'm ready. Commander Vexstar managed to speak, his words clearer now that he was breathing clean oxygen. Jake Martinez. I officially transfer temporary command to you. Computer, recognize authorization. The ship's computer acknowledged the transfer. Temporary command transferred to Acting Commander Jake Martinez. Emergency protocols remain in effect. Jake felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. For the first time in his life, he was responsible not just for himself, but for the lives of 11 other beings who depended on him completely. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered what other surprises his human biology might have in store. Acting Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of an alien starship, surrounded by crew members who were barely conscious and dependent on him for their survival. The emergency atmospheric purge had cleared most of the nerve gas, but his Zephyrian crewmates were still severely weakened by their exposure. The ship's navigation display caught his attention with a flashing red warning. Jake moved to Navigator Scylla's station and tried to understand what the alert meant. The symbols were in Zephyrian script, but he could make out what looked like a three-dimensional map with objects moving toward their position. Computer, translate navigation warnings to English, he ordered. Warning, ship trajectory approaching asteroid field. Current course will result in collision in 37 minutes. Manual navigation required to avoid impact. Jake's heart sank. The ship had been drifting while the crew was incapacitated, and now they were heading straight toward a field of space rocks that could destroy them completely. Scylla, he called to the navigator, who was conscious but still very weak. How do I change the ship's course? She tried to focus on her instruments, but her hands were shaking too badly to operate the controls. Navigation requires precise calculations. Must account for ship mass, current velocity, asteroid positions. Jake looked at the complex navigation interface. There were dozens of controls, displays showing mathematical equations he did not understand, and warning lights indicating that several automated systems were offline. Computer, can you calculate a safe course around the asteroid field? Negative. Navigation computer requires manual confirmation for course changes during emergency situations. Zephyrion's safety protocols do not permit fully automated navigation during crisis events. Dr. Bell's voice came through his communicator. Jake, what's happening now? We're heading toward an asteroid field, and I need to navigate around it manually. But I don't know how to use Zephyrien navigation systems. Can any of your crew members help you? Jake looked around the bridge. Commander Vexstar was awake but could barely sit upright. Dr. Kielnon was monitoring medical readings but seemed confused by his own instruments. Engineer Zareth was conscious but kept staring at her controls as if she had never seen them before. They're all too weak to operate the controls properly, Jake reported. Admiral Morrison's voice joined the conversation. Jake, you're going to have to learn fast. Put us in contact with your ship's computer directly. Jake established a communication link between Earth and the Meridian's main computer. Within minutes, Admiral Morrison and his technical staff were talking directly to the ship's artificial intelligence, getting detailed information about the navigation systems. Jake, Admiral Morrison said, the good news is that Zephyrien navigation systems are designed to be intuitive. The bad news is that you're going to have to make split-second decisions based on three-dimensional calculations. Navigator Silea struggled to help. Jake Martinez, listen carefully. The blue controls, adjust horizontal movement. Red controls, change vertical angle. Green displays, show safe corridors through asteroid field. Jake studied the navigation station. The controls were arranged in a pattern that made sense once Silea explained it. Blue for left and right, red for up and down, green displays showing where it was safe to fly. Computer, show me the asteroid field and highlight the safest path through it. A three-dimensional hologram appeared above the navigation station, showing their ship as a small blue dot approaching a swirling cloud of gray rocks. A green line traced through the field, indicating the route that would keep them away from the largest asteroids. That path looks very narrow, Jake observed. Commander Vexstar managed to speak. Asteroid fields, more dangerous than they appear. Small rocks can damage hull. Large rocks can destroy ship completely. Jake realized he had no choice but to try. Computer, transfer navigation control to this station. I'm going to attempt manual navigation through the asteroid field. Warning, manual navigation requires extensive training and experience. Recommend waiting for qualified navigator to recover. We don't have time. Transfer control now. Jake felt the ship's movement controls become active under his hands. The steering was more sensitive than he had expected. A small adjustment of the blue controls sent the ship sliding sideways through space. Easy movements, Silea advised weakly. Ship has much momentum. Small changes take time to show effect. Through the view screen, Jake could see the asteroid field growing larger ahead of them. Some of the rocks were as big as buildings, tumbling slowly through space. Others were smaller but moved faster, creating a constantly changing maze of deadly obstacles. Entering asteroid field in 5 minutes, the computer announced. Jake practiced with the controls, making gentle adjustments to get a feel for how the ship responded. Engineer Zareth was watching him work, and despite her weakness, she offered advice. Power systems can provide extra, maneuvering energy if needed. Emergency thrusters, for quick direction changes. Dr. Bell's voice came through the communicator. Jake, how are you feeling? Any effects from the nerve gas yet? Jake realized he had been so focused on the crisis that he had forgotten to monitor his own condition. I still feel completely fine. Actually, I think the stress is making me more alert than usual. Remarkable. It's like your body is immune to the nerve agent. The first asteroids were visible now as individual objects rather than distant dots. Jake could see them rotating slowly, their rough surfaces scarred by millions of years of impacts with smaller rocks. Beginning navigation sequence, he announced. Jake engaged the manual controls and felt the ship begin to change direction. The movement was smooth but slow, and he had to think several steps ahead to account for how long each course correction would take. The first asteroid passed by on their left, a mountain-sized rock that would have crushed the ship like an insect. Jake adjusted their course to follow the green path displayed on his screen, threading between rocks that seemed impossibly close together. "Good work," Commander Vextar said, his voice still weak but carrying approval. "Steady movements, trust the computers, course calculations." Sweat was running down Jake's face as he navigated between asteroids that filled the view screen. Several times he had to make emergency course corrections when smaller rocks appeared suddenly in their path. Engineer Zareth called out warnings about approaching obstacles, her voice getting stronger as the clean air helped her recover. "Large asteroid, approaching from above. Adjust vertical, angle down 15 degrees. Jake made the correction, feeling the ship drop below a rock that would have torn off their communications array. The navigation was becoming easier as he learned to trust the computer's guidance and his own instincts. Halfway through the field, he reported to Earth. "So far so good." But the most dangerous part was still ahead, where the asteroids were densest and the safe corridor was narrowest. Jake guided the Meridian through the densest part of the asteroid field, his hands steady on controls he had never used before. Around him, the Zephyrian crew was slowly recovering, but they were still too weak to take over navigation duties. Dr. Nancy Bell's voice came through the communicator with barely contained excitement. "Jake, while you're navigating, I've been analyzing the data from your ship's medical sensors. What we're seeing is extraordinary." Jake made a careful adjustment to avoid a cluster of tumbling rocks. "What kind of data, Doctor?" "Your neural activity readings during the nerve gas exposure. They're completely different from what we expected. The gas that incapacitated your crewmates had literally zero effect on your brain chemistry." Navigator Celia was alert enough now to help with course corrections. "Jake Martinez, adjust heading, 2 degrees left. Large asteroid, dead ahead." Jake followed her guidance while listening to Dr. Bell's explanation. "But why would I be immune to something that affects other species so severely?" "That's what I've been researching. Jake, when humans evolved on Earth, we faced environmental challenges that no other known intelligent species ever encountered. Radiation exposure from solar flares, toxic volcanic gases, extreme temperature variations, and a constantly changing chemical atmosphere." Commander Vextar was able to speak more clearly now. "Our world has always been stable. Few environmental challenges compared to Earth." Dr. Bell continued her explanation. "Most intelligent species evolved on planets with stable environments. Their neural pathways developed in predictable ways, following similar patterns. But Earth was chaos. Humans had to develop backup systems for everything." Jake was beginning to understand. "You mean our brains work differently because Earth was more dangerous?" "Exactly. Your species developed redundant neural pathways, alternative biochemical processes, and resistance to toxins that would kill other life forms. What we thought was primitive biology is actually incredibly advanced survival engineering." A massive asteroid loomed ahead, forcing Jake to make a sharp course correction. The ship's hull groaned under the stress, but they slipped past the rock with meters to spare. Engineer Zareth was studying her instruments with growing clarity. "Jake, power systems show unusual readings during your stress responses. Your body, producing chemicals we do not recognize." Dr. Bell's excitement was clear. "That's another piece of the puzzle. Jake, when you're under stress, your body is releasing neurotransmitters that actually improve your performance. Most species show degraded function under pressure, but humans seem to get better." Jake thought about how he had felt during the crisis. Despite the terrifying responsibility and immediate danger, his mind had been clearer and his reflexes sharper than ever before. "The nerve gas," he said slowly, "it works by disrupting normal neural pathways, right?" "Correct. It interferes with the electrical and chemical signals that allow brain cells to communicate. But if humans have backup pathways that other species don't have." Dr. Bell finished his thought. "Then the gas might actually enhance your performance by forcing your brain to use its more advanced systems." It's like the difference between a simple road and a complex highway network. Block one route, and humans automatically switch to another. Commander Vextar listened to this conversation with amazement. This means, humans are not primitive at all. Your biology is more advanced than ours. Jake successfully navigated past the last of the major asteroids and into clear space beyond the field. The immediate danger was over, but the implications of what they had discovered were just beginning to sink in. Admiral Morrison, Jake called to Earth, we're clear of the asteroid field. The ship is safe. Outstanding work, Jake. But I think we need to talk about what Dr. Bell has discovered. This could change everything about how we view human integration into galactic society. Dr. Kielnon was finally recovered enough to run proper medical scans. Jake Martinez, your readings during the crisis show neural activity patterns we have never seen before. Your brain was operating at efficiency levels far beyond normal parameters. Jake looked at the medical displays showing his brain activity during the nerve gas exposure and navigation crisis. Instead of the disrupted patterns shown by his Zephyrian crewmates, his readings showed intense, organized activity with perfect coordination between different brain regions. Doctor, he asked Dr. Bell, does this mean other humans would react the same way? Based on what we're seeing, yes. The resistance to nerve agents and enhanced performance under stress appear to be fundamental characteristics of human neurology. Every human should have these capabilities to some degree. Commander Vextar struggled to sit up straighter in his command chair. Jake Martinez. I must formally apologize. We thought humans were useful but unremarkable. We were completely wrong. Navigator Celia was studying the navigation logs from their passage through the asteroid field. Jake, your navigation accuracy was better than most trained Zephyrian pilots. How is this possible, with no experience? Jake thought about it. I don't know. It felt natural, like my brain was automatically calculating the best paths without me having to think about it consciously. Dr. Bell had an answer. Enhanced spatial reasoning under pressure. Another evolutionary advantage from surviving on a chaotic planet. Humans had to navigate through dangerous terrain while avoiding predators and environmental hazards. Engineer Zareth ran diagnostic checks on the ship's systems. All systems functioning normally. No damage from asteroid field passage or atmospheric emergency. But the real revelation was not about the ship's condition. It was about humanity's place in the galaxy. Everything the other species thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. Dr. Bell, Jake asked, if humans have all these hidden advantages, why didn't anyone discover them before? Because no one ever tested humans under the right conditions. Most integration programs focus on how well species can adapt to standard procedures. No one thought to see what happens when those procedures fail. Admiral Morrison's voice carried a new tone of respect. Jake, what you've accomplished today is going to require us to completely reevaluate human potential in space operations. You may have just proven that humans are not junior partners in galactic civilization. Jake looked around at his recovering crewmates, who were all staring at him with a mixture of respect and amazement. In the span of a few hours, he had gone from being the newest and least experienced member of the crew to being the person who had saved all their lives. But more than that, he had accidentally discovered that humans possessed capabilities that no other known species had ever developed. The implications of this discovery would ripple through the entire galaxy. 3 days after the nerve gas incident, Jake Martinez stood in the Meridian's main conference room, facing a holographic assembly of the most important leaders in both the Terran Federation and the Zephyrian Alliance. The investigation into what had happened was complete, and the results were changing everything. Commander Vextar, now fully recovered, sat beside Jake at the conference table. The respect in the Zephyrians' eyes was obvious to everyone present. Honored leaders, Vextar began, I must state clearly that Jake Martinez saved not only our lives, but potentially our understanding of what humans are capable of. Admiral Morrison appeared in the hologram from Earth. The technical analysis confirms everything we observed during the crisis. The nerve gas concentration reached levels that should have been fatal to any known species. Yet Mr. Martinez showed no impairment whatsoever. Dr. Nancy Bell stood beside the Admiral, holding a data pad filled with test results. What we've discovered fundamentally changes our understanding of human evolution. Humans are not primitive compared to other galactic species. In many ways, they're the most advanced. High Commander Zexera of the Zephyrian Alliance leaned forward in her holographic projection. Explain this conclusion, Dr. Bell. Every intelligent species we've encountered evolved on planets with stable environments. Predictable weather, consistent atmospheric composition, minimal radiation exposure. This created neural pathways that are efficient but vulnerable to disruption. Dr. Bell activated a holographic display showing brain scans. Humans evolved on a planet in constant chaos. Massive climate shifts, volcanic eruptions, solar radiation, toxic gases, extreme temperature variations. To survive, human brains developed redundant systems for everything. Jake watched the brain scans with fascination. His own neural patterns looked completely different from those of the Zephyrians, with multiple pathways connecting every region and backup systems for critical functions. The nerve gas works by blocking specific neural pathways, Dr. Bell continued. When those pathways are disrupted in most species, brain function degrades rapidly. But humans automatically switch to alternative pathways. Commander Vexstar spoke up. What Jake Martinez demonstrated was not just immunity to the gas, but enhanced performance under extreme stress. His navigation through the asteroid field exceeded the capabilities of our most experienced pilots. Captain Lisa Parker joined the conference from Earth. We've conducted additional tests with human volunteers. The results are consistent. Humans show improved cognitive function when exposed to mild stress, environmental toxins, and challenging conditions that would impair other species. High Commander Zexera looked thoughtful. This explains some anomalies we have observed in human behavior. Their tendency to volunteer for dangerous missions, their ability to adapt quickly to new environments, their success in situations where other species fail. Jake finally spoke up. I think there's something else we need to discuss. If humans have these capabilities, what does it mean for our role in the galactic community? Admiral Morrison smiled. That's exactly what we're here to decide, Jake. The Zephyrian Alliance has made some proposals that might interest you. High Commander Zexera activated another holographic display. Based on recent events, we are restructuring our integration protocols. Humans will no longer be considered junior partners in space operations. She paused for effect. We are proposing the creation of joint human-Zephyrian crisis response teams. Ships with mixed crews specifically designed to handle emergencies that would incapacitate single-species teams. Jake felt excitement building. You want humans as partners, not just crew members. More than partners, Vexstar said. We want humans as leaders in situations where your unique capabilities provide advantages. Your resistance to bioweapons, enhanced performance under stress, and ability to function in extreme environments make you invaluable. Dr. Bell added more information. We've also discovered that human presence seems to have a stabilizing effect on mixed crews. Your ability to remain calm and focused during crises helps other species perform better than they would alone. High Commander Zexera continued the presentation. We are offering Jake Martinez a promotion to Deputy Commander of the Meridian, with authority to take command during any crisis situation. We are also requesting that Earth provide more humans for similar positions throughout the fleet. Jake looked around the room, both physical and holographic. A few days ago, he had been a junior communications officer trying to prove he belonged. Now he was being offered a leadership position based on capabilities he had never known he possessed. I accept the promotion, he said, but I have a condition. Admiral Morrison raised an eyebrow. What condition? I want to help develop training programs to identify and develop these capabilities in other humans. If we have these advantages, we should know how to use them properly. Dr. Bell nodded enthusiastically. That's exactly what we were hoping you would say. We need to understand the full extent of human potential. Commander Vexstar stood up. Jake Martinez, in the name of the Zephyrian Alliance, I formally promote you to Deputy Commander of the Meridian, with full authority during crisis situations. The ship's computer acknowledged the promotion. Deputy Commander Jake Martinez recognized. Command protocols updated. High Commander Zexera made a final announcement. We are also establishing the Institute for Human Capabilities Research, jointly operated by Earth and the Zephyrian Alliance. Dr. Bell and Dr. Kielnon will serve as co-directors. Jake thought about how much had changed. The nerve gas drill that was supposed to be routine training had revealed that humans were not the primitive species everyone thought they were. Instead, they were uniquely adapted to survive and thrive in conditions that would destroy other forms of life. There's one more thing, Jake said. We need to share this information with other species in the galactic community. If humans can help in crisis situations, we should make that capability available to everyone. Admiral Morrison agreed. We're already planning to do that. This discovery doesn't just change human-Zephyrian relations. It changes humanity's role in the entire galaxy. As the conference ended and the holograms faded, Jake found himself alone with Commander Vextar on the bridge of the Meridian. The stars looked the same as they had a week ago, but everything else had changed. Jake, Vextar said quietly, I owe you an apology beyond what I said in the conference. We welcomed humans as interesting newcomers, but we never truly respected your species. That was our mistake. Jake looked out at the stars. I think it was everyone's mistake, including ours. We didn't know what we were capable of either. What do you think happens next? Jake smiled. I think humans and Zephyrians are going to accomplish things together that neither species could do alone. And I think the galaxy is going to be a safer place because of it. The Meridian continued its journey through space, no longer carrying just a mixed crew, but a partnership that would reshape the future of galactic civilization. And Jake Martinez, who had started as a simple communications officer, was now helping to lead that transformation. The nerve gas drill had been intended to prepare for attacks from hostile forces. Instead, it had revealed that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their unique ability to thrive when everything else failed.